From India's top negotiator or Sherpa to G20, Shaktikanta Das spoke to Wion ahead of the big G20 summit in Argentina. In an exclusive interview to Wion's principal diplomatic correspondent Siddhant Sibal, Shaktikanta said India will raise the issue of terror, strengthening our financial action task force and bring to book fugitive economic offenders. Here's more.
Well, the 13th G20 summit is all set to happen in Argentina. This summit is for the first time that the G20 is happening in South American continent, South America. And this summit comes at the 10th anniversary of the Leaders Summit, which took place in 2008 in the backdrop of the financial crisis. I have with me India's Sherpa, a person who has been charting out all the negotiations on India's behalf at the G20, Shaktikanta Das. Welcome to Wion. So here we have 20 of the largest economies coming together and talking. G20 is a kind of mechanism. How will India sell its own story, the India story, in front of these world economies? Because we know that there's a fragile recovery. There are countries which are not progressing very much, and there is the trade war. Even the country which is hosting G20 is not doing very well in terms of economy. So how is India going to sell its India story at that world stage?
India talks as a kind of a global player which tries to contribute to resolving major global issues, whether it is the issue of terrorism, for example. Let's take the issue of terrorism. Now in Hamburg summit, for example, our Prime Minister came out with a 11-point agenda to deal with the problem of terrorism. And that has been accepted, and a standalone statement was issued during the during the summit in Hamburg last year.
So are we going to just take from Hamburg to Argentina? We're going to talk about terror much more this time around, especially the issue of financial terrorism and cross-border terrorism, because that has been the focus of India.
You see, we will talk of, India will definitely talk of, and we have been at my level, we have been doing it, but when the leaders meet, certainly these will be India's priorities. India will definitely focus on terrorism and the issue of terror financing, making the FATF more active, active, and ensuring universal implementation, or not just passing laws, not just passing laws to deal with terrorism, but actual implementation of the FATF principles by all countries. So our focus will be on terrorism and terror financing. Our focus will be on unaccounted money and unaccounted financial flows across countries, what we call the black money. As you would be aware, Prime Minister had taken a big initiative in the Brisbane summit in 2014, and following that we have the multilateral agreement on sharing of information between countries, and now that is that is already implemented, and countries are now sharing information. So India has a big story to tell on the fight against black money, and India also would like further action to be taken on that front. India also would like to focus on the need for greater cooperation in dealing with the problem of economic offences and the problem of fugitive economic offenders. That is, persons who commit economic offences and then sort of go to other countries to escape the arm of law. And the economic offences sort of pose a major threat to the world economy. They have the potential of undermining the financial stability of the entire global economy.
So what will be India's focus on these economic offenders? I mean, is India planning for all the countries to have a coordinated approach so that these offenders should not be provided safe havens to their own territory? Because there are G20 members who have been providing, in a sense, safe havens to many economic offenders.
No, you see, this has been discussed. This has been discussed in the meetings of the Sherpas during the Argentinian presidency. And the importance of the issue is now recognized by everybody. There is need for greater international cooperation to deal with the problem of economic offences and economic offenders, especially fugitive economic offenders.
So you mentioned FATF. How does India plans to strengthen FATF, and how does India plans to also raise the issue of, because certain countries, despite being grey listed, are continuing to violate the norms or commitments they have made in front of FATF. So is India going to talk about that also, because they are overlapping countries? They are countries who are also member of G20 and member of the FATF.
No, usually you see the G20 leaders, they give, they give a strong political message on certain issues. So therefore, today there is unanimity among all countries, all G20 members. There is a unanimity that terrorism is a big threat to the world community, and this has to be dealt with very effectively. So therefore, there is unanimity. So FATF, I mean, it's for the leaders to sort of spell out what kind of appeal or what kind of message, the political message they would like to give to FATF to sort of play its role. FATF has been playing a very very significant role. One must recognize the important role which FATF is playing. But how to further sort of strengthen the implementation of the FATF standards by the non-compliant countries and jurisdictions.
So that was India's Sherpa speaking exclusively to Wion on number of issues, whether it's the issue of terrorism, black money or other related issues.